Hey guys, this is Cassandra from Educational Innovation 360. Today we're going to talk about what do we need to do to address shadow AI in K-12 education. So we know artificial intelligence, of course, is transforming everything in the way we do things in education. But what I want you to kind of focus on is not all innovation and transformation is happening under our district oversight, right? So we're exploring today kind of the rise of shadow AI and some of the tools that are used by teachers. And now all the tools aren't officially approved, but thinking about what does that mean for leadership and compliance and school safety and what we as leaders need to do to kind of support that transition. Okay, so what is shadow AI? So we know it refers to AI tools being used independently, so outside of district policy. So teachers and students might be using chatbots, right, or translation tools or grading assistants because, of course, it's faster and it's convenient, right? So, but without kind of the district kind of properly vetting the grading assistants because it's fast and convenient, it does lead us to compliance risks. So this is kind of what we say with shadow IT. It's going quickly in education, and we want to make sure we support them. So here's some kind of 3 examples I've kind of seen in schools. So we're using writing assistants kind of for homework or essays, or teachers kind of using the grading tools and grading bots, and then staff kind of with the curriculum, and so curriculum generators or translating tools or kind of those agreement datas in place are things that we want to kind of just know about. I don't want to say it's bad, but kind of using them without any policy or oversight kind of creates this accountability gap. So according to the Consortium for School Networking, AI kind of has outpaced policy development, right? So 80% of districts report experimenting with generative AI tools, but only 40% have kind of formal governance like frameworks around those tools, which meaning that many schools in the K-12 or teachers in the K-12 classrooms are kind of operating without rules, regulations, kind of leaving us vulnerable, especially when we're talking about privacy and equity. And so what we know is the biggest risk in technology is the lack of structure around it. So when kind of the shadow AI is left kind of unchecked, it can compromise data, lead to some of our compliance violations, and just to be honest, can create biased or inaccurate educational output. And so this is kind of a leadership concern, not necessarily a tech issue. Okay, so why shadow AI matters with critical risk? Thinking it's just the lack of structure around it. So when left unchecked, it compromised data. We're talking about the use of so we have our data protection measurements that are around, which can get us in like legal implications, FERPA violations, trust. Just even thinking about the lack of trust between communities and families, we treat AI tools like just other vendors. And thinking about bias, I say this all the time, algorithmic bias, misinformation, if not vetted, can answer or score incorrectly. Just imagine like some of our teachers are using that automated grading tool, misinterpret cultural language differences. Of course, that's why we must pair human with oversight in thinking about any AI decision. So here are the big 3, data, FERPA, and algorithm bias. So beyond the compliance, we have cultural impacts and operational impacts. Thinking about what does it mean to expand the accountability. Every new tool has new vulnerabilities to our systems. When we reduce connection, we risk kind of losing a part of that relationship with learning. And of course, we understand the digital divides, which, students with AI have more access to literacy, may move faster, it may widen the gaps, especially when it comes to equity. So we definitely, as leaders, need to kind of address all 3, the accountability systems that we have in place, the human connection, and then thinking about the digital divide. So we know AI is here to stay. There's major trends in AI integration. There's widespread adoption. A lot of districts looking at it to where how do we communicate? How do we provide personalized learning tools? How do we think about privacy as our priority and work with vendors through that? What does the professional response need to be? And then what are the skills challenges that we need to kind of support our students in when it comes to individualized learning? Really understanding that, some educators are kind of AI comfortable, while some are kind of hesitant, uninformed, and not using it. So thinking about strategy is clear. District need just look and see if your district has even an AI policy outline with approved tools, which protects you as an educator, right? And thinking of how these protections are kind of required, and now tools can be introduced and professional development can align around that, and then continue with the transparencies of these vendors, and schools, really demanding, visibility on how data is utilized, how's data stored, what are the implications of this data, and how or when will data be deleted. So really understand the policies, the vendors, and then the criteria, the data protection, and really take a look at those agreements. When it comes to strategy, we're thinking about people and process, really being able to understand staff and students to foster AI literacy. How do we monitor the tools across the districts to identify what are the unauthorized apps? And how do we engage our communities, right? And parents, teachers must understand how AI is shaping our learning, and having a suitable AI culture where everybody is comfortable. Of course, these three pillars: AI literacy, being informed, monitoring our digital tools that we're using in our districts, and how do we communicate effectively with families prior to the rollout, like they are involved in the decision making. So what you all know is kind of AI is not a one-time policy. It's a living and breathing practice. It needs to constantly be updated. We have to stay connected with our national institutions, our cybersecurity alerts, making professional learning, professional development a priority because it changes so much and so often. And leadership teams should, of course, regularly visit these practices and practice with their educators with lessons learned, collaboration, to continue to stay ahead of the game. All right, so really thinking about how do we lead with an AI future. So we know shadow AI kind of continues to challenge us to lead differently. Policy, of course, usually is the beginning. It gives us that structure to build on, partnership, continues to build that trust that we need with our communities, and then professional growth with not only the teachers, but the families and parents that are involved, ensure that we are always learning. Like, they understand the key takeaways, they understand our vision, they understand how we're balancing this innovation to stay with the times with this protection of their baby's data. And so there's safeguards, but it also leads the way into what we need to do to kind of shape an AI ethical future in education. All right, hope these tips help. Talk to you later for more. Bye.